Okay. Hi, my name is Jessica, and we're going to try to do the electronic Christmas tree from Velleman. I was very upset when I first started to look at this because although the level says difficulty 1, I felt that these meager instructions were not for a beginner librarian like myself who's only soldered 2 times. So we're going to try to go through these directions, and I'm more of a YouTube tutorial person myself instead of these confusing pictographs. So the first thing I did was I put the resistors on the tree, and those are nicely labeled. It says from the instructions that the first resistor to the fourth resistor is the brown, red, red. And you can tell resistor-wise because they have these little color stripes here. So the brown, the red ones go 1 through 4. You've got 5 and 6, which are the gray, red, orange ones, which are a little probably harder to see here, but gray, red, orange. And then you've got R7 and R8 are brown, black, and yellow. Brown, black, and yellow. So I put all these in, made sure they were pretty tight, and I'm going to attempt to solder them all. So when you're soldering, make sure you have a few things. I'm soldering with lead. I have my wire cutters. I have my safety glasses. And I have my soldering pumped up to not max, but pretty much we'll try it with here and see how it goes. And I also have my soldering, which is with lead. I'm going to cut a little piece off. And the resistors hopefully didn't have a certain position that they needed to be in, unlike when you'll see later with the LEDs, because there's a positive and a negative on the LEDs, so this is the positive longer side, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So I put all the resistors in, and they told me to bend everything at kind of like a 45-degree angle. You've got to kind of get it out of the way here. And what I liked about this Christmas tree, as opposed to the other Christmas tree I was going to buy, is this one's flat. So I know that when I solder, none of the components on the other side are going to move around, which is very handy. Okay, so the trick to soldering is you have to heat up this little bronze part up here. You're not putting the soldering gun straight onto the lead because then it's going to drip everywhere. And as you can see, these connectors are pretty close once you start putting the LEDs in and the transistors and stuff. So you really just want to get it all around this little circle to cover it in a cone shape. So let's give it a try. I have health insurance, just in case. So I'm going to attach it here. Going to give it a few seconds to heat up. Then alright, so that's my first one. Give it a little time to dry. I'm actually going to pick these up a little bit because I'm afraid once I attach them, it's going to be problematic. So once again, never realized how much you shake until you start doing something like this. Alright. So that looks not too bad. Just kind of going through making sure the soldering's completely covering the circles. Okay. Alright. So hopefully that's the resistors. And then we're just gonna cut them off. Okay. Fingers crossed. So that's step 1. Okay, now step 2 are the LEDs. And like I had said before, the LEDs have a longer side. So hopefully, according to my little instructions here, the negative side, which is the shorter side, is going to go in the bottom of all these. Let's hope, or I'm going to cry. Okay, so as I'm putting them in, the short side is going to always be pointing to the bottom of the tree. And then put them at a 45-degree angle. So okay, so this is definitely a way that you can check to make sure, because as you can see, by bending them, making sure that they're flush right on top of this, I can see that all my tall ones, my longer ones are at the top, and then my shorter ones are at the bottom, so it's a really quick way to go, boop, 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 boop. Okay, looks good on this side, and then we can flip it around and start to solder these. I guess we'll go with the top. So now that I did that, I'm just going to like pull them up a little bit just to make them easier. Now this is definitely one of those points where you don't want the solder to go over to this part over here because it'll short the LED. So just make sure you got a little bit of room here. They sell one of these things called a desoldering gun, and I recommend them. Mine's on my way from Amazon today in time for my class, because I have a feeling I am going to be taking solder off I think just for ease, I'm gonna cut them as I go. Woo! Now I know why you need the safety goggles. Alright, so far so good, I hope. So the instructions say now to go to the transistors, which are these little War of the Worlds looking things. And I'm going to follow the instructions by assuming that they just go in like in a triangle. So they are conveniently labeled T1, T2, T3. They're kind of bendy because I put pretty much everything in and then thought I was going to solder it all at the same time and then realized that I should have listened to the directions, which happens a lot to me. It's one of those people that I was one of those people that always finished the test and then looked at the instructions. To kind of steady myself using the soldering gun, just to kind of put it down to make sure I'm even. Did not see that happen. Alright, well, let's keep our fingers crossed on that one. My problem is there's like a teensy tiny little bit of solder over there that might mess with the connection, and I might have to wait to finish this. So as you can see, we're probably about 30 minutes in right now. Why I was a bit skeptical that this was a beginner project, because this is a lot of soldering, and it's very close together, these connections. So for someone who's just learning how to solder, it's going to be quite troublesome to get them to keep it in those very small circles. Or maybe I'm just a terrible solderer, I don't know. Alright, next is the capacitors, and that does matter, capacitors, and that does have a positive and a negative side. But conveniently, they actually labeled these, so long side positive, positive to positive, and then bend. Once again, hopefully it doesn't matter which capacitor I choose for which one, because they did not label them. Alright. Ta-da! And last but not least, we're going to attach the battery pack. And maybe it's going to work, maybe it's not. So once again, the battery pack, it's also important. There's a positive and a negative wire. And it also says positive and negative in here, in case you forget. So we're going to take, oh, it even says the color. Why, thank you. So red. Black. Okay, so should have read the instructions better because it needs a 9-volt battery. So we're going to give it a shot and see what happens. I leave everything to my cat. Well, hey, more than I thought would actually light up the first time around. Okay, so what I'll do is mark these, and I just have to go over them with a little more solder, and hopefully that will secure the issue. So hey, not bad for a first try, right? Probably should take the battery out before I do that. There's also a thing called the multimeter, which you can take and see if the proper amount of electricity is flowing through here. That would be my second recommendation. But yeah, I won't put you through the boring stuff, and we'll just fast forward it to actually getting it to work. Okay, so take two. What I ended up doing is I marked the LEDs that weren't working, and then I just kind of went over them with a little extra solder because I noticed that a few of these didn't have the perfect cone shape, and I thought maybe that was the problem, that there just wasn't enough solder here. And ta-da! 10 minutes before I had to teach the class, it finally started to work. So basically at this point, you just have to take the 3 screws that come with it and screw it onto the back, and there it is. So, pretty excited. I feel much more confident. But here are a few things that I did learn along the way. I got this desoldering kit off of Amazon. It has a desoldering pump so that you can actually suck up solder, and it also has a copper wick, which you put the soldering gun to the wick, and then it takes the solder off. So this is really good for beginners. It has a lot of other tools I haven't even played with yet, but a good thing to have when you're not sure if, people might have to unsolder a whole LED or something like that, or maybe there's too much solder in between 2 points. Having these tools available was really good. And I will show you. Having a multimeter is great too, because I could actually, when I turned it on, check all the points, and if you hold up the points to the positive side and the negative side, you can actually see how much voltage is going through. So if one of the points on the LED doesn't have as much voltage, then that means you might have to resolder it. So that one has about 1 going through. And I can check this other one. So that's a multimeter. It's very handy to have. Since you have a 9-volt battery, there's 2 volts and 20 volts, so you always go to the 20-volt one because there's nothing in between there to measure. And that's it. So I hope my video was helpful, and happy holidays.